Looks like I think we're still waiting on maybe one or two for quorum at the moment. So let's give just a couple minutes for folks to trickle in and then we can kick it off.
Perfect.
All right, it looks like we've got the numbers present. And so I'll turn over to you, Angela, to kick us off.
Mm, Okay. Um, so good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. I think first thing we need to take attendance. Is that
Yep.
correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right, so Angela Haupt,
Here.
Dan Young, not seen in the room. Jen Iluk,
Here.
thank you. Quinn Ty, I think he's going to be late today, but he's not here at the moment. Patrick Hanks,
Here.
thank you. Ron Perkowicz, not seen in the room here today. Ken Brulette,
I'm here.
and Ken, I noticed that I've got two people with your name signed
Yeah,
in.
I'm logged on two computers. I have to log on as Seattle City Fire Department, and then I have to log on as my personal since to keep it separate.
I gotcha, no worries. Josh Mergens, I'm not seeing them in the room today. Barry Kurth,
Here.
thank you. Justin Cravalho,
Here.
thank you. Mariko Blessing,
Here.
Jonathan Jones, not seen in the room here today. Leah Summer, not seen in the room. And Annie O'Rourke,
Here.
thank you. And with that, hold on, I marked that wrong. With that, we have a quorum. We've got two extra seats, so if folks have to leave, just let us know and we should be okay for business until we lose two seats.
Okay. So now, are there any members of the public that want to be identified?
Yeah, this is Hoyt Jeter, Principal Junior City Tacoma.
Okay. Gavin?
Gavin Kennel, representing Washington Solar Industries Association.
Okay. Phaedra?
Phaedra Beckert, also Washington Solar Energy Industries Association. Thank you.
Lucas?
Lucas Shattuck, City of Tacoma. I'm a proponent of the visitability proposed appendix to the IRC, and I don't know if we'd be speaking on that today, but I'm here to do so if needed.
Okay. All right. I don't see any other hands.
Oh, yeah, Scott Douglas, Structural Engineers Association of Washington.
Thank you,
Okay.
Scott. And for those who might be new to the Zoom platform, if you don't see the raise hand button, it should be underneath the reactions icon, the little heart that's on the bottom. There should be a raise hand function somewhere in there.
Okay. So next on the agenda is to review and approve the agenda.
And are we still seeing that on screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Can I get a motion from someone to approve the agenda as shown?
Motion to approve the agenda as shown.
Okay. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion? All right. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion passes. Next, we will review and approve the minutes from last meeting, the one we had last Tuesday. So
And so I'll
Dustin
scroll
is
through
showing
them.
it on the screen right now.
And that's all we have on that one.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as written? I mean, I'm sorry, the minutes as written.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Does anybody have any discussion on the minutes? All right, so all those in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? All right, that passes. All right, now we will move into the existing amendments report. And I think so we'll continue what we started to do with chapter 1 last week, with Dustin going through the report, and we can discuss the individual suggestions now that everyone has had a chance to review that report.
All right. So I have one comment from Josh Mergens. It's on chapter 3, so I'll just hold off until we get there. And I guess the way I'd like to do this is instead of reading line by line, since we've had a chance to review some of this, we'll start in chapter 2, and then I guess, like to see if there's folks who have any targeted sections that they'd like to discuss for the existing amendments, and hit them, and then we can scroll through the rest. And so at that point, let me get to the chapter 2 on here. We had the motion on chapter 1 last meeting to approve the recommendations in here. I guess before we move on, as if after everybody's review, is there any sections in chapter 1 that anybody would like to go back and revisit? Ken.
So I get,
Uh-oh, two computers.
Oh, you need to turn off your volume on one of them.
yeah, that was pretty funny. So I guess my question is, and I kind of talked about last amendment is last meeting when we talked about modifying amendments, and my understanding was we're going to do it similar, is that the tag can still put in a petition, right? Is that still going to happen by the?
I believe that that's
members?
still gonna happen. We're gonna have an executive committee meeting this Friday. I'm still getting that organized. As far as some of the discussion at that meeting, I want to talk about what it looks like for the tag to recommend proposals to the IRC. But I think it's a value to have the amendments that are needed identified by this group to come through and not hold them off. It's just the specific process. I want to nail down this Friday at our executive committee meeting.
Okay, so I guess my question is, did you want, and this I guess up for Angela's, did you want to assign individuals to work on petitions? Because in the meantime, if somebody identifies this, it needs to get modified, or is staff gonna be the one trying to put them together?
Well, if we could have some draft volunteers, that would help staff keep up with everything that we have going on. But yeah, so if we can assign or ask for volunteers for amendments that need to be drafted, that would be wonderful.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah, the most efficient way possible is how we'd like to get it done. So I think even before going to the exec board, I think in this one, if people want to volunteer to take on something that says it, then we can get that working and moving forward. Mariko?
I wanted to go back to
WAC 51, 51, 01, 010, which is our 102, 101.2 scope on page 2.
Mhm.
And you'll have to forgive me. I am new to this, new to being on a tag. I just kind of really unfamiliar with this process. I think I've worked out more or less what I'm supposed to be doing. But one thing I believe is incorrect on this one is I believe that the blue words added should be in number 6, because I think that is consistent with the changes to the model code, because we add number 3. And so number 5 in the model code is amended, which means that really it should be number 6. So
So
I think
you're
like
saying
4 should be custodial care, 5 is medical care, and 6 is where the daycare language is added.
and so you're
Based
saying
on
that
how I see the model code.
all of number 6 should have blue language, you're saying?
No, I'm saying that and I could be wrong, but I don't think the insertion belongs in number 5. I believe the insertion of the blue text belongs in number 6.
Okay. And so
Yeah, she is correct. I mean, yeah. Age. Yeah.
So also, like, let me know if this is not exactly how
No,
I
you're
should be doing
correct.
this.
You are, because the thing is we add 3, so 5 is actually 4 in the model code, and what she's saying is 6 is actually 5 in the model code. And so the daycare and any age should not be in the same line as receiving medical care.
Yeah, that's my take on it.
Does that make sense, Dustin? So yeah, so number 6 should read a daycare facility with 5 or fewer persons of any age receiving care.
So if that's what it should read, so we have the WAC here. This is what's adopted via the WAC. And then what I have in the published IRC code is the same there. So if that's a cleanup that we need to do, that would be something we need to draft into our rulemaking document.
Well, no, this is a staff error on this report.
Okay.
That number 5, you put a daycare facility of people receiving medical care. That's not what the base code reads.
Oh, I hear
Number
you.
6 is actually number 5 of the base code. So the word day should be in number 6. The words of any age should be in number 6. The word unit should be in number 6. Well, it should actually be in both of them, but you see what I'm saying? So that was a staff error. It was put into the wrong exception
I hear you.
because the numbering is different.
So when we're looking, so this is the 2024 code update needs to,
Yes.
okay.
Number 6 should read a daycare facility with 5 or fewer persons of any age receiving care. And number 5 should still read a care facility with 5 or fewer persons receiving medical care. Yeah.
And that's why
Sketch.
also you said something about like unit is redundant. It's because really the unit was added after a single family dwelling in number 6.
Well, so it should be added. Number 5, evidently it should have unit still in there, and number 6 needs unit added in there. I don't know why it wasn't in 5 already. Because they
Well,
all end
Oh,
in
I think it
lowercase.
probably was. I think it actually was already there, but then when staff saw that unit was added in the
Oh.
new code, they were confused because unit was already there in number 5 because of that mistake.
okay.
Yeah.
So
So
5's unit is red.
Yeah.
let's see. to delete that. Okay. Is that looking like what we're thinking it's supposed to look like now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
And so this incorporates the new model code language in the appropriate locations, maintains the state amendment. And so when we were talking about this last time, I was mentioning that we have an opinion on this particular section that we did earlier this year. The content of this section as adopted in our documents for Washington, I don't have a proposal with all of this language in here. And I do believe that this section needs some work to make sure that we're hitting our amendment properly so that it's enforceable and not confusing to the jurisdictions, and also incorporates those blue texts in number 6 as drafted now. And so I don't have any specific suggestion for fixing this section, but I think this is one that we should talk about as we get ready to develop some proposal.
Well, but what you're saying is, so we do have a proposal to clarify the adult family home interpretation.
Yes.
And that proposal is missing the blue text.
It might be, and that's easy to
Not sure.
incorporate that into that proposal as we discuss it. My main thought on bringing it up is that there's been a lot of confusion over this section so the adult family home clarification is part of it, but I would like to see in our proposal all of this language that's in here. I have no history of this language. It just got added in at CR 103 by someone at our last code cycle.
That was because I explained that it's because this is all base language, but the base language is based on everything being sprinklered because we removed the sprinklers. So that's what all that red is, where it says where equipped with an automatic fire sprinkler in accordance with. That's
Okay.
all why all that was added in addition, is to bring it up to the same requirements as the base code actually has.
Okay.
Dustin, before we move on, number 6, where you're making the changes, it looks like the of any age and receiving should be switched in order.
Yeah, of any age should be before receiving.
Thank you.
Jen, you've had your hand up for a while.
Yeah, I was going to make another language change suggestion, but if you're going to table this to have more wordsmithing done on it, you can put me down as one of the people happy to work on it with someone. And then I do have a couple other, one other thing for chapter 1 when we move on.
Okay. If we can, so we got one proposal on this one. Angela, are you feeling that we need to have any additional proposals come in on this?
I mean, I guess I'm not sure what other confusion outside of adult family homes you're receiving feedback on.
It was mainly
Is
just
it-
that in the interpretation we did earlier this year. There's a lot of folks reaching out on it. So if we have the proposal covered on it, Jen, we can forward that to you, or I guess let's talk about what you had in mind for an additional language change.
Yeah, very small. So I think we have a definition for dwelling unit, and then we talk about 1 and 2 family dwellings. So I think single family dwelling unit is sort of like a mishmash of kind of not the right term. Like I don't really like to see us use single family within the code if we're calling it a 1 and 2 family dwelling. I like to just keep things consistent, or maybe here we just need to say dwelling unit. Maybe we can just strike the single family part.
Pull that out of there.
Except that we're trying to make sure that they're not doing this in duplexes and townhouses, which are also made of dwelling units. And in that case, you could have duplexes that have these care facilities in there. And I believe that's what is trying to be avoided.
So then I would
the
maybe
definition.
Yeah, I would maybe say, specifically then a 1 family dwelling And then maybe there's other places that we can make this more explicit, because I did not have that understanding. That we talk about that a lot at work, that you could have a duplex and you could have these things and both sides of the duplex and there's nothing to prevent it. So I don't think that's clear to people.
Well, and I think that's why the single family dwelling, versus I see what you're saying. So you would have one family dwelling and remove units.
Yeah, I would just keep it either it's a one family dwelling, which is what the term is in the code, or a dwelling unit, if that's, whichever is appropriate. I just, like I said, I'm picky, so I don't like to say single family because there's no definition for that.
Right. No, you're correct. It's a 1 and 2 family. That's the title, is 1 and 2 family dwelling, isn't it, of the code?
So here, maybe what you're saying, actually, is it prohibited in a 2 family dwelling then?
So permitted in accordance with that for 1 and 2 family. So I'm not totally sure. Okay, just a sec. So 1 of 5 receiving medical care within a dwelling unit. Yeah, so this is the only one that says single family is the daycare facility. So you're right. I don't think it's consistent with the rest of everything else that does allow it within duplexes and within townhouses.
So as far as this one goes, so we know we want to work on this one.
Yeah.
We have the proposal there. Maybe we can hash this out as we review that proposal and finalize that language as we get through that one. So I've got it marked down. Jen, and I believe Angela, you're the proponent of that proposal that we have for this one.
Yeah.
So what I'll do is I'll send that proposal out to the both of you, and when we get to that, if we can get to that today, we can revisit the dwelling unit terminology, and then we can kind of finalize the language in the proposal deliberation a little bit later. But I'll get that sent out. If we don't make it to proposals today to that specific one, I'll deliver some documents out to folks for everybody.
Okay. Yep.
See, Mariko, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I had one other thing about this one, and I don't know, it's probably just my lack of history with this language, but Dustin, you mentioned like some confusion about this language, and I also am confused about what a care facility is in number 4 and number 5, when we have that opinion that says a care facility, an adult family home is not a care facility.
That's
so
why we
I
have...
personally am confused about what number 4 and number 5 even are.
So they come out of the IBC. The IBC directs you over, basically says if they're, so yeah, these are the same as base code, but that is where the confusion came from as far as certain jurisdictions trying to force adult family homes to be sprinklered when that is not the requirement. And that's why the proposal for this actually removes adult family homes from the body of the scope and adds it as number 7 in the exceptions to make it very clear that it is a separate entity. And so
I guess
it's
my question is, do we even need 4 and 5 in the Washington code if we're adding adult family homes as number 7? Do we, what is even 4 and 5? Like what would qualify as 4 and 5? Do we even need those?
Well, an adult family home isn't necessarily where you're receiving medical care or custodial care.
Yeah, I was in, like I said, it might be my lack of understanding with all these terms and history. I tried to look it up on the Washington website for like what is an adult family home and what are other things, but I couldn't find anything with those terms. So
over here. It
I
comes
mean,
from
if everyone thinks we still need it, then that's I'm fine with that.
Oops, that's not what I wanted. R4. Oops.
Or do we need to add definitions for care facility or a definition?
I don't think. No. Yeah, I don't. At this point, I don't think adding definitions is particularly within the scope. Let me really quick. If we want to move on, I can look at what the commentary on this says, if there's anything that notes it. And
Okay.
we can
And
circle back around.
we can you know, hash it out when we're talking about the proposal on this section.
Right.
Wait.
Yeah, I'm Hoyt Teeter, Principal Engineer in City of Tacoma. I remember this from a long time ago. What the daycare was trying to deal with really was for like kids, children, and stuff like that. And then the care facility was for any age. So the state actually wanted to separate those and make sure it was clear that a daycare center, a care facility was supposed to be for anybody, and a daycare, that's what's weird when it says of any age. That's where it gets confusing. Daycare is supposed to be set up many years ago for where it was really for. It was all back in the UBC days. It was just for pretty much kids, basically. So
So for the family home child care.
yeah, it's kind of like childcare. Yeah. So that was where the difference was, and I think over time it got morphed and got mixed up that way. So that was what the difference really, but it's definitely not clear, you know, having care facility and then daycare facility of any age. I mean, they're, you know, it is kind of a, it's probably supposed to be like of any age. It would be, I would think what they meant is, you know, under, you know, elementary or, you know, kids like that. So that's what I think the intent was in the past. So it looks like it's kind of got screwed up over time.
Jen?
So we have family home childcare and we have requirements, and that I believe starts at 6 or more kids. Isn't this saying then that if you have 5 or less, which I was reading as there were no requirements, actually that needs to be sprinklered, but not 6 to 12?
I think that is some of the confusion that we need to make sure we clear up.
Yeah. And I
Okay.
think the of any age is to cover adult daycare also. I do think it means of any age, because that's different than an adult family home. Because adult daycare could be just it's during the day, or it's minimal. It's not that they live there, but there's more and more. There's places that adults actually do also. So again, I think, yeah, we can wordsmith this a little bit and then bring it back.
Okay. So is there anybody else who wants to help on this proposal? I'll when we get done today, I'll email out the proposal to a small little work group. So far I got Angela and Jen that'll receive that. Is there anybody else who might want to have input?
I'm interested in being part of that.
Okay. Alrighty. Moving on from 101.2, I heard, I don't remember who it was, but somebody had another section in chapter 1 to revisit.
I just had a question for the effective date. We had highlighted that we'll be updating the effective date of the code.
Yes.
Do we have, I know we don't know the exact date, but is that going to be like in ballpark? Is that going to be like July or November of 2026?
It's November
the-
1st. It is a specific date.
Yeah, it's set date
From-
certain right now
yeah.
for November 1st, 26.
Great. That's all. That was my question. Thank you.
Yeah, November 1st is the new adoption date that is set now by the SBCC, barring any extensions that we have to do for outside reasons.
Okay. All right. Is there any other specific sections in chapter 1 to visit, or will you let the rest of that motion stand from the previous meeting? All right, seeing no hands here, nobody. We're on to chapter 2. We didn't go completely through this one. We started scrolling through, looking at the ones where we were looking for some modifications as suggested by staff. Does anybody have any definitions they want to jump to, or should we run through this one and kind of consider it as a whole? Jen.
Yeah, a couple things. So in the 2021, we added electric vehicle charging requirements, but we never added the definitions to go with that. So I suggest that we, match what's in the IBC and only pull in the ones that we actually need. And then we had discussed a little bit about, we don't adopt chapter 11. So dwelling unit here on the screen, we've struck that for the definition applicable in chapter 11. I noticed a lot of definitions have that. And for some, that's the only language there. So I think that there's still some cleanup to do to run through all the definitions and, not just leave all that kind of cruft left over from striking chapter 11 there. And that might mean striking some definitions completely if they are things like, that should be in the energy code or whatnot. But I noticed that that's through several.
So as far as striking chapter 11 in the significant changes report, I think that I've captured most of those definitions that need to be removed, because that's all they do is refer to chapter 11. Are you saying there's some that we have here in the existing amendments that we need to address in that same fashion?
I really didn't get several hours to go through both of these reports like, is really warranted. I just was working on some of this morning and noticed, like I was looking at building thermal envelope and I was like, oh, they're referencing. So if you've taken care of that, great. Like I said, I did notice that for some definitions, that's all they do. They actually don't provide a definition at all in chapter 2. So at least for those ones, it seems kind of weird to just leave them.
Yeah.
But if you've taken care of it, great.
Well, as far as taking care of, maybe that's a little bit more robust than I would say I have done, but I have tried to address the ones that only reference specific chapters. There's several definitions that reference the fuel gas chapter as well. And so, in some of those actually reference both chapter 11 and chapter 24. I've tried to suggest the amendment to just either, if it only references chapter 11, to strike the definition from the Washington residential code, or to just strike the reference to chapter 11 and leave the reference to chapter 24. And we can, I guess, address those as we get to them in the significant changes report, unless we have some here in the existing amended definitions to move forward. For the most part, most of these that are in this list are state-specific definitions that have been added. Anything that's not all red text will be a model code definition that's been modified in Washington.
Yeah, so Jen, if you go through and you're finding definitions that you think should be struck because they don't apply, make notes of those and we can take care of those at a later time.
Yeah, there might be some that are not changing either, right? So they're not an existing state amendment and they're not a significant change. They're just existing. So maybe I'll look at those ones.
Yeah.
It
Thank
looks
you.
like there's quite a few. I just did a control F search in chapter 2 and there's a lot.
Of those just standard definitions that only reference chapter 11. Yeah, there's quite a few that are new this year, or new this season, I should say.
I know that are in the current code.
Oh, okay, then we need to, then that'll be something that'll be a cleanup item that wasn't anticipated for these reports here as existing amendments and significant changes to the model code. So what I can do is, I don't know if I can get it done before the next meeting on Thursday, but I could run through chapter 2 and come back with some of those for consideration for cleanup as we go through this.
I mean, as a tag, we could always recommend to the committee that it doesn't necessarily fall cleanly within these current reports, but that's an issue that we identified that needs addressed.
Okay. Okay, gotcha. For dwelling unit, I have a suggested modification here to include this new blues text here. The red strikeout is existing amendment modifications from this definition. And this is just a keeping it as close to the model code as possible while maintaining the amendments from Washington. Same for fire separation distance. They added the term townhouse units to this definition, and the recommendation is to incorporate the model code language. As we keep on going, the definition for local exhaust, this one was added in the 2018 cycle. I don't have a great rationale statement in that document. But the amendment and the model code language are almost identical, but they're not quite identical, but they're close enough that I feel that they're have the same regulatory effect. And so I would recommend that we repeal this amendment. And I am looking to pull that up for folks to view side by side. Get to it. All right. So local, oh, great. Here we go, local exhaust, an exhaust system that uses one or more fans to exhaust air from a specific room or rooms within a dwelling. And what we have on the books is an exhaust system that uses one or more fans to exhaust air from a specific room or rooms within a residential dwelling or sleeping unit. So I'll pause there on this recommendation to remove the amendment for local exhaust. Does anybody disagree with the recommendation to repeal this amendment or to maintain? Ooh, didn't mean to do that. I'm sorry, guys, for goofing it up. Yeah. I wish these didn't jump around when you change the size of the screen. So I'm trying not to make it too small.
So is a sleeping unit different than a dwelling?
I would say a sleeping unit kind of is like an R2 type, you know, sleeping area only, and a dwelling unit has all the provisions for life, health, cooking, sanitation.
So if
So,
we remove that term, does that mean we're removing the requirement for that to have local exhaust?
so sleeping unit, in my opinion, is not actually specifically regulated in the IRC. I did a search through the IRC, and there are people that I think would disagree. But the only places that it is used, other than some exhaust systems, are in actual state amendments to the IRC. The term sleeping unit, it's not regulated anywhere, and I've debated with other building officials and things on this, as far as they're saying that in our definition of lodge, is it lodge house or whatever we have in there? Or yeah, owner occupied lodging houses, it says with 5 or fewer guest rooms, that those guest rooms are actually referring to sleeping units. But that's not what it says. And by definition, a sleeping unit has a sleeping area and either bathing or a kitchen, but not both. So it's a hotel room. It's, you know, things like that. And I think it was this definition where we were looking at removing that, maybe, or I was looking at removing it. I didn't think it made a difference if we removed it, because again, if you do a search through the code, there's nowhere that actually uses it, because there's no separation requirements or anything else that technically applies. So I don't know, other people may disagree with that, but that's kind of where I'm at.
Well, then I would support removing it and reviewing anywhere that that term is used in the IRC and potentially removing it there too.
So again, I think these are things that we would bring back as a proposal to discuss further, correct, Dustin? Instead of just
Correct.
on the fly removing these with nobody having any notice.
Yeah, I mean, this is just the recommendation from staff. This is by no means the recommendation of the tag. So if we want to highlight this one for some future discussion or look for a proposal to modify this, or, you know, a recommendation from this body to maintain, because, you know, the reason it was added in 2018 is not clear to me on the research I've done to this point. And I kind of agree that, you know, sleeping unit isn't necessarily used widely across the code. And, you know, that's the reason I have the recommendation to repeal the existing amendment, because I don't see it as being different than the model code definition. But we can put a pin in it and definitely revisit for further discussion if we want. Patrick.
Yeah, I mean, if it doesn't make sense to have sleeping unit in the code and we had a proposal to deal with that, or if we had time as a tag to work on that change and recommend it to the committee, I would be supportive of that. But it seems like right now we're kind of going to have to stick with it. And so if we're going to stick with it, I don't think we should remove it from anything that currently has it.
So I am
Just
totally
to try
okay.
to be consistent.
And I'm okay changing this to maintain the existing amendment. Is that something that the body agrees with? We could do thumbs up, or, you know, we could take a vote on this specific section to keep it. But I think if we are getting consensus on this and then vote on chapter 2 as a whole, we don't have a ton more in chapter 2. You know, there's only 2 changes recommended by the existing amendment report to chapter 2.
Yeah, does anybody else have any opinions on keeping sleeping unit in there or not?
Oh, sorry, let me raise my hand or not.
You're fine.
I think in the absence of a compelling argument for removing it, which I haven't seen, then I would leave it alone. That's just my personal opinion, just because it sounds like maybe there's nothing more to it, but I just haven't seen anything compelling, like an overwhelming, everybody's like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. It seems like every time it comes up, it takes up a lot of our time discussing the why or the how. So I would just say, let's not get hung up on it and move on.
So then, in other words, you want to keep the state amendment.
Yeah, I would keep it because I just haven't, nobody's really come in and said, well, this is why it was put in the first place and it's no longer relevant. It's just like, oh, we don't know why it was put in. In the absence of a compelling argument to say this needs to come out, I'm just for leaving it just to keep moving forward. Now, if there was some compelling evidence like, oh, this shouldn't have been in there in the first place, or this is no longer relevant and here's why, then I would say, okay, let's move on that. But it sounds like that's not entirely clear at this point.
Yeah, that's fine. My opinion just is that it doesn't apply anywhere. So it's a dead statement, but it's fine. I mean, it's probably not hurting anything.
I don't think we haven't had any opinions requested on the section, so
That's because there's no sleeping units.
I'm gonna modify this one to keep the existing amendment for that definition. And where am I going here? That's the wrong color. Bear with me. I will fix colors later. All right.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Is someone keeping track of changes that we make to this document?
Well, as I'm editing this, I have different versions going, so I don't necessarily have them notated, but I have the different versions that we'll have on this document. I can develop a changes log here as we're going.
Yeah, I don't know if we want to have a log or if you just want to highlight things just that it's easy to identify for people at the committee level what we've changed.
Notes like that work for you, Patrick? Cool. Okay. Moving on, unless we want to talk more about local exhaust. Try to get the correct color. There we go. The next one that I have a recommendation to repeal is lot line. So the model code definition we see here, the line that bounds a plot of ground described as a lot in the title to the property, and the change is the line which bounds a plot of ground. I think this is substantially similar, but I also do not have a compelling reason to change it back. So if the desire is to not change things that were deliberately put in a previous cycle, I would suggest changing this recommendation to keep the existing amendment, because I don't have any good rationale why it was put into the code this way, but I don't have a good reason to take it out other than I think it's substantially the same. Angela?
So the difference is the word that and which.
Yep.
in this is just an opinion as the chairperson, is just I would really love to see us limit the state amendments, and so if they're not necessary, remove them so that we can try to take the amount of work in the future down as we go versus, I mean, a slightly different grammatic, but again, whatever the tag decides.
That was the spirit of my recommendation, is to just try to go as close to the model code as possible. But so I'll pause. Hoyt.
Yeah, I'm on talk the same as Angela. It gets very confusing, especially when people start designing from out of state and we have a little change and then people start reading it and trying to figure out, well, why is which and that, and it gets kind of, I have to deal with that talking to people certain times. I think you should just stay with the model code. The way it's written, it means the same. You come to the same conclusion, and having amendments to just have an amendment, I don't think it's reasonable in my opinion. So, and just FYI for people, we do take our amendments sometimes to the national level. They get discussed. I don't remember taking this one, but I don't think it's. I think we should get rid of the amendment and just go by the model code. Make it simple.
Okay. Well, it sounds like there's desire to keep that recommendation as repeal the existing amendment. Any other comments on lot line? Not seeing any hands. And for the remainder of the definitions, where there are amendments to the model code, the recommendation is to maintain the existing amendment. I'll pause here. Is there any specific definition that anybody would like to go back and revisit on the keep existing amendment statements? All right, I'm not seeing any hands come up. So that's the end of chapter 2, and to keep it the same as we've been doing previously, I guess we're in a position to entertain a motion to accept the recommendations for chapter 2.
Motion to accept the recommendations made for chapter 2.
Can we get a second?
Second.
Okay. Do we have any further discussion? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Are there any opposed? All right. That motion passes.
That brings us to chapter 3. I wanted to ask if there's anything specific that folks in their review wanted to target first before we run through. Jen.
Sorry, I was a little too quick on the draw. There's something I want to discuss, but not first necessarily. So I have something for section 302 when we get there.
Gotcha. You said 302?
Yes.
Okay. Let me look. I also have something from Josh Mergens on section 302.2.2 common walls. So I will pull that off to the side for the moment, and then we'll run through here. So for the first recommendation to modify an existing amendment is for section 301.2.2.10, the anchorage of water heaters. This one we point to P2801.8, and or no, I'm sorry, the modification is to remove that reference to the plumbing section in the IRC and refer to the Uniform Plumbing Code, section 507.2. My recommendation, though, is to repeal this amendment I do believe that the new model code section here, why is my contents not popping up? Give me one moment to wrangle this. This is ten. All right. Work with me. Okay. 301, 2 to 10. So in this code section, they have broken this out into two separate sections in the 2024 code. And I've recommended that we repeal this amendment and go with just the model code section here. If it helps, I can pull up this section in the 2021 code so we can review what exactly our amendment is. Patrick. Oh, you muted yourself.
I was trying to do a thumbs up. I pressed the wrong thing.
Oh, no worries. All right. Any other comments on the recommendation for 301-2210? And I guess as I'm running through, is this too small for us to run through it side by side here? Is it working for everybody to view this, or should I try to make it larger as we go through and then make it smaller as we target sections?
Can we pull up this section in the current code to compare?
Yes. Two. Sorry. There it is. Here we are in the current, dang it. There we go. This section here. And are you wanting to see the 2021 model code, or this is the state amendment? It should be the same as what we have on here, except for the strikeout section.
Yeah, no, this is good. Thank you.
Okay. And the blue stuff on the left there is new model code language added in 2021 to this section. And so that's not a significant change in the 2024 version.
So it looks like the 2024 code doesn't even reference the plumbing section.
Correct. I do believe that so here, let's see if I can. And I think the change is they want to any appliances, they're going from just water heaters to appliances. That's kind of the change there. They're not referencing only water heaters with the new code requirements. I do believe that the specific sections like the fuel gas code in the plumbing sections do reference the water heaters in different locations. But we would be referring for specifically for water heaters, we would be going by the plumbing code anyway. It should be looking for the seismic resistance strapping and stuff there. Go ahead, Angela.
I have a question though, then does this change number 4 under the exceptions? Is that basically says that most water heaters wouldn't need to be strapped if they're on the ground? Or does the water heater weigh more than 400 pounds?
I think a lot of water heaters are taller than 4 feet.
So
But it says the bottom of the appliance.
Or
It doesn't
equipment
say-
is 4 feet or less above the floor level.
the commentary
still-
mentions that a 40-gallon water heater plus the weight of the water will weigh approximately 450 pounds in the commentary.
Where the installed weight is 400 pounds or less. And but it says, and the bottom of the appliance or equipment is 4 feet or less above. So it's not talking about the height of it. It's talking the bottom. So if it's mounted on the ground, that's what I'm asking. If it's mounted on the ground, then it may not require strapping. Is that what I'm reading? Because that's a change from, I pulled up 1307 and the UPC. Neither one of those had that exception, so I'm just curious.
I'm reading the 3012210-1 as well. That's where the 1/3, or no, sorry. I just feel
Right,
like that's where like the stuff that we're all used to is kind of located.
Right. Hoyt, maybe do you know?
Yeah, so the way you read this, where the installed weight is 400 pounds or less, okay, so it's 400 pounds or less.
Okay.
And the bottom of the appliance equipment is 4 feet or less above the adjacent floor level. It's pretty confusing, but based on reading the way this is actually stated, it is possible with a water heater that, let's say it's less than 4 feet and it does weigh more than 400 pounds, you would not require seismic strapping, which I don't think
Well,
is.
if it's more than 400, then it would require strapping.
That's
But
correct.
if it's 390 and it could be a 6-foot tall water heater that's strapped or that's on the ground, it would not require strapping.
No, if it's 6 feet, because it says or less. Yeah, and the bottom of the
But the
appliance.
bottom, it doesn't say anything about the top. That's what
Yeah,
I was
you-
thinking, that if it's the top, then yeah, you're keeping it to short and squatty.
Right.
But I guess so. I'm just curious. You could have a 6-foot tall, 350-pound water tank, but I'm just, again, the strapping was more for protecting your potable water, from what I used to think.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm just saying that seems like a change, and if we're comfortable with that, then that's fine. I'm just asking the question of the tag.
Well, the way I read it, just skip the or less. Okay, say we're installed, the weight is 400 pounds, and the bottom of the appliance equipment is 4 feet or less. So what it would be, the one that you said, it was 350 pounds, but it was 6 feet, so it didn't meet it.
But that's the top is 6 feet, not the bottom. Bottom's on the ground.
Oh, I see.
Julius,
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
you're muted, Julius, if you're talking.
Oh, I thought I already got recognized. So I just want to point out that our state is generally in seismic design category D. So the 10.1 provision will apply. So item 1 and 2, you need to provide strapping for equipment, right? 1/3 of the component's vertical dimension. So the exception in 2.10 does not apply to us because this is seismic category C. So general,
It's actually D0,
yeah,
D1 and D2, all those exceptions apply.
right. So
And
for
that's what 10.1 is also talking about. So you never get to 10.1 if you don't get past 10.
no, ours is seismic. We're seismic design category D. So 10.1 should apply. So that's the higher hazard. So strapping will be applied.
But that's what I'm saying. 10, just 10. So 301.2210 applies to the exact same seismic categories as 10.1. So if 10.1 applies to us, then 10 applies to us. And if that exception 4 applies, then you never get to 10.1 because that's telling you how to strap it if you have to. Jen?
Oh yeah. Mhm.
Right, is it the 2024 or is it the next cycle that puts part of our state into seismic design category E?
Well, we're already in D.
E is an echo.
E, echo, oh.
That's happening this cycle.
I'm sorry, what cycle?
That's happening in the 24 cycle, at least for the Olympic Peninsula.
So isn't that missing then from these sections? Or is there another section that's specific to E that's even more robust?
Not included yet. I would assume that probably the assumption is that E should be included in those provisions as well. And maybe that's a oversight on the model code level.
So yeah, I was just asking the question because that is a change. But if everybody's fine with that as a tag, then you guys can vote on that.
And then we will definitely be talking about this a little bit more in the significant changes report. And in that report, I've tried to include the rationale statements from the CDP, from ICC, or at least to distill them a little bit so that they're one sentence statements. And we can definitely view those changes as we go through that one. And so I guess back to this one, since the code language is completely changed, is the prime reason that I have recommended we remove this existing amendment to this section.
Yeah, sorry, for the purpose of this report, then yeah, I agree with that. But yeah, Barry?
Oh, it's call me. My question was, not super familiar with the Uniform Plumbing Code, but is this model code language that's proposed comply with what the Uniform Plumbing Code says? Do you know that?
Not know that, but I could start pulling it up and take a quick peek.
Because I could see that this could be the new model language could maybe be in conflict with what our original intent was on adding the Uniform Plumbing Code into the previous section.
The UPC language basically goes with the 10.1 language. What's this 507.2 says water heaters shall be anchored or strapped to resist horizontal displacement due to earthquake motion. Strapping shall be at points within the upper 1/3 and lower 1/3 of its vertical dimensions. At the lower point, a distance of not less than 4 inches shall be maintained from the controls with the strapping.
So the uniform plumbing code doesn't have the exception for what's listed in item 4. Is that correct?
Well, it doesn't tell you, it doesn't have any of that stuff. It's basically mirroring the 10.1, where the 10 is telling you where you have to have it. 10.1 is telling you how to do it. See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what the plumbing code is basically doing, which now that appears to be in the model code, which I think that's what you were referring to in the report with the changes and stuff.
Yeah. Well, the other change here is that this no longer specifically references water heaters or thermal storage units. It just says appliances that are designed to be fixed in position, and appliances and equipment in seismic design category DO, D1, D2. So it's trying to address, I think other things that might need to be strapped, not saying we have vending machines in residential structures, but anything that's big and in an earthquake might tip over. They're, I think, trying to bring those into the strapping requirements and not specifically reference the plumbing section. And
Furnaces.
and by that, we don't necessarily need to, make sure that this mirrors the plumbing code. Unless we want to bring some of this into the plumbing code as part of our update, but I'll pause. Barry, Patrick, then.
I'm just kind of wondering how the model code would be enforceable. Like, what do you do with a refrigerator? How are you supposed to strap that in and still have it be functional, like being able to open the doors?
It's not in fixed because it's not designed to be in a fixed position. I don't think it's not actually like mounted to the floor. It's a movable piece. Would be
Oh, so it's
how
like
I would
fixed
read that.
appliances.
Yeah, like a furnace, a hot water tank. Things are actually attached to the ground. Is what. But I could be wrong. Wait.
Yeah, actually, that is an equipment and things like that. And you don't specifically say water heaters and you start saying equipment. There are other equipments that get put in that may start requiring strapping. The strapping was specifically for intended to be just for the water heater. It wasn't supposed to be for all equipment. I mean, you can have a lot of different equipment that is going to exceed that, where I think Patrick's correct. You'll start getting interpretations that you're going to start strapping other things.
Yeah.
And this is really specifically for water heaters. So, I think that's a mistake. I don't think they mean all equipment, because there's other equipments that get put in that will meet that requirement that you'll have to start strapping now. The uniform plumbing code, I think, is pretty clear. It's the water heater.
So I think I kind of led us astray on this. I think for the purposes of what we're working on right now, I think from what I'm hearing, I think we need to address this. We do need to repeal the existing amendment, because I think it's going to need to be maybe changed or tweaked, or I guess when we discuss the significant change that's there, we determine if portions, I guess, should be kept or not. But as far as, I guess I'm trying to figure out, it'll need to be changed at the very least. So I'm thinking maybe because the code language has changed so significantly that we defer the change on this one to that significant change report. Does that make sense?
That sounds good. Yeah, and I just made a note to make sure that we revisit this one in the significant change report, so that we can discuss a little bit further, maybe have some time to go through and look at the changes and come back with some more opinion on this specific section. but for the recommendation on the state amendment to the old language to be removed, it sounds like we're in consensus for that particular recommendation. Okay. Moving on then. And
I had one for 302 before we leave this little section.
Okay.
I believe that there is an amendment that's missing from the report and actually was missing from the last 2 code cycles, and that's 302.2.6 in the model code requires structural independence for townhouses. And then that kind of just, and we would previously strike that in Washington. And then that was kind of missing, and we noticed it in the 2021 that it was required, and we were, people are probably requiring it on their plan reviews, but we contacted SBCC for interpretation, was told that was an oversight, it was missed, and it should be struck. So we should not be requiring structural independence for townhouses.
And that was 30. Could you tell me the code section again for that one?
302.2.6. And I'm not making the argument either way, but we should get that into the report, address it. Do we want to keep it, modify it, repeal it?
Okay, so let me. Two, 6. So this one, are you saying that we had an amendment to completely not adopt that section right there?
I believe that's the case, as recent as the 2015 code cycle.
Okay.
And then it was missing. So, I mean, I just assumed, I didn't remember, I was in the last IRC tag. I don't think we ever discussed it because I think it was missing out of the report. But there's so many, I can't remember each one anyways. So I was starting to require it on a plan review because it's in the current, residential code. And we did contact you for an interpretation on that.
Okay. Wait.
Yeah, the problem with that in a seismic zone, because it's a dynamic loading, you got to be able to transfer the forces. You can't actually get the seismic gap between it. So they really cannot be structurally independent. And that's been in there for a while. All the seismic areas do that so they don't bang together and tear apart and things like that. So California, Oregon, all of us, they cannot be structurally independent. Just FYI. So just FYI, you could do it for live load. Wind is not a dynamic force, but in the seismic areas, it is a dynamic force and they'll bang together. So it's impossible your diaphragms not being tied together and your walls, things like that. So I believe, I didn't know, I'm not in the IRC, I apologize. I don't go in this that often, but it's physically impossible to do a structurally independent townhouse in a seismic area. Or you got to have a seismic gap, So I guess you can't do it. You'd have to have a seismic gap.
What I pulled up here is the 2018 CR 102. It looks like they had 2 options for this section when we were adopting the 2018 code. And one of them addresses a new definition for townhouse units as it applies to the separation, and option 2 deletes the amendment. Let me scroll down and see if we can find that in the body of the text. Here we go. We have the 2 options in here. And then if I pop out 1, 5, 6, looking at the permanent rule.
Yeah, what I remember is you either do a structurally independent or you could run your diaphragm through the walls and things like that and run it continuous. You can,
And then the reason statement on our CR 103 for this section says that it strikes the existing state amendment regarding structural independence in favor of the model code language. So I don't have a good reason why it was struck from the code, just that they deliberately did it in 2018.
Okay, that's not the answer I got from you when I asked for interpretation. So
I'm sorry.
that's okay. We should just make sure that we route this out. And I don't have an opinion one way or the other what it needs to be. We need to make sure it's right in the code, whatever it is.
Gotcha.
are you saying that townhouses now have to be structurally independent between the units?
They can be.
Yeah, but then you got to have a seismic gap.
Yeah, that's your structural calculations.
I've never seen anyone do that. Because your floor diaphragm, because you're transferring of your horizontal diaphragm. I mean, absolutely you can, but
So I think the structural independence that they're referring to comes from the language from the IBC for firewalls. And it's not for seismic, but the intent is that if you have a fire unit in one side or the other, that you can have a collapse of that side with the other still staying, because we use that same exception here in Mount Vernon because we have fire sprinkler ordinance. And so when people try to build townhouses under the IRC, we currently require that they have a firewall in between them if they start getting close to that square footage requirement. But we don't look at the structural independence as far as seismic is concerned.
yeah, that's correct. That's the way you're supposed to do it. It seems strange how this is written for me. So,
Well, and I think that that's just because the language was probably pulled straight from the IBC firewall definition.
But are we in agreement that this is fine? Because I mean, I think this is how I was always plan reviewed it.
you mean you haven't done structural independent? You basically, they've had, two walls or something and things like that. You haven't actually physically gapped it between, right? Okay. You've tied.
No, yeah.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
I
it's
thought.
the same, but that's what this section says, isn't it? I mean, you don't have to, the foundation doesn't have to be,
Right.
the structural roof and wall sheathing don't have to be, if it has a common wall and if it's sprinklered, it doesn't have to be,
Okay. Then
right?
that's correct. That is correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me just make sure. So we covered that one. I got a comment from Josh Mergens on 302.2.2 for common walls. This section right here, it looks like we're not seeing the full report. He says, he's seen confusions among designers and plans examiners on the term both sides right here on this specific code language. The question is it a 1 hour from each side, meaning double layers of sheetrock on both sides, or is a 1 hour wall like a layer of 5/8 type X on each side? He says he doesn't know what is correct, nor does he have the expertise to weigh in, but he has seen the confusions and wanted to float the idea of addressing that particular confusion in our code language. That is model code language that is there in that section. And he would recommend updating the, oh, this is the next section, I'm sorry. So I'll pause on common walls. Angela?
So again, I think this language kind of came from in the IBC. There's some times when you can do your fire exposure from one side where you basically only have to, the exterior doesn't have to have the 1 hour, but the inside does. So I mean, this is just making it clear that it's an actual full 1 hour assembly. But I don't know if, I don't know how much confusion there is. Hoyt?
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to Angela's correct. What they basically want, since the IRC is a prescriptive code, okay? A lot of times they tell you put 5/8 here, put half inch here. What this is basically saying is you got to have basically a 1 hour wall. It has to be completely doing that. So it's from both sides, means it has to be basically a 1 hour type of construction. And here's they're just trying to make it prescriptively. That was all it was. So they want to make sure you put the 5/8 type exits, things like that on both sides of the wall. So Angela's correct.
Okay. So no issues with that, and we don't see it as being terribly confusing on that section?
I don't think so, because I think in some assemblies it even states that. It even states where the fire exposure is at. So yeah.
That's correct. That's correct, Angela. That's correct.
Gotcha.
So just asking a little bit further about this, because I hadn't even thought of it as being confusing, but now I'm getting there. Both sides of the property line or both sides of each wall in the building?
Both sides of the wall.
See,
Fire
and I always took it
exposure
to be
from,
both sides of the property line.
but your common wall doesn't have a property line. You're talking between townhouses. I mean, you could
Correct.
have one, but this is talking about common walls. So it's, the section is talking about walls. And so it's the wall has fire on both sides is what it's rated for, is fire exposure on both sides of the wall.
Okay, and I know that this, the definition of townhouses has changed over the last 25 years. Seems like quite frequently, and for a good number of those years, a property line between townhouses was part of the definition, and that went away. And so I'm wondering if that's just not lingering from back then, so.
I don't believe property lines were ever required in the IRC for townhouses. It says that you can have them, but a townhouse has always been one large structure. It used to be under UBC, basically townhouses were called zero lot line kind of thing. But under the IRC, and maybe somebody else can correct me, but I don't believe the definition of townhouse, since it's been added to this specific code, has ever required a property line.
Yeah, Angela's correct. That's correct, Angela, from the history of the code.
Yeah, so again, I would suggest using this in, because it does actually provide some clarification due to other portions of this code. Again, though, what is does the tag have a different does the tag have a different consensus on that?
Well, it doesn't sound like it. So, it sounds like we don't want to remove both sides because it's needed there for clarity. And then the only recommendation is to incorporate that word openings from the model code. That's the recommendation on the change there. All right, I'm gonna move on to 302.2.3 continuity. I have a recommendation to incorporate new model code language, but I also had a question: is the figure in the wrong location or numbered incorrectly? And Josh Mergens had a recommendation to renumber them to 302.2 number 1 and 302.2 number 2. And currently, those are numbered.
I actually think they're in the wrong spot.
That's kind of what I was thinking. And
Yeah, I don't, yeah, they go with section 302.2.3. They're before it instead of after it.
Okay.
Because it's actually illustrating number 1 and number 2 underneath those.
So it does belong with 302.2.3?
Yes.
Okay. And
As far
so,
as somebody else have a different opinion, when I looked at, I'm pretty sure it's illustrating those items.
I agree with you, Angela.
okay. So yeah, they do belong with this one. They're just the numbers in the figures are wrong. And so they should be 302.2.3.1 and .3.2.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we please take a break soon?
If it's okay with you, Angela, I would be okay pausing
Yep.
while I make some notes on this one. You want to come back at 10:40, or what works for you, Angela?
Yeah, let's make it 10:40. 7 minutes okay for everyone?
Sounds
Okay.
good, thank you.
Okay.
Yep. All right. So Dustin, a last thing on that last discussion on continuity.
Mm-hmm.
Changes will need to be made in the amendment to reference the correct figures too.
Yes. So I changed I updated the notes here. The proposal needed to update to bring roof into it, and then figure should be numbered to fit with 302.2.3 in there. And these are interesting ones. The files we have are like not PDFs, they're JPEGs on these, and so I can edit them. It's not as straightforward as I would love it to be.
Yeah. Yeah, and so then just above, it'll just need to be changed to C figure R 302.2.31 and then 2.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Oh. Right. Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, we'll run, I guess, assuming that everybody's back, and then we'll find out for sure when we do votes. All right.
Before we move on from this one,
Mhm.
I know we have new language in the 2024 code about fire separation distance and the imaginary line between townhouse units. So I don't know if we need to take a look at this any further, or if everybody has and feels confident, particularly in figure 2, still working with that, since it sort of contradicts what it says in the, sort of like an exception.
What section are you referring to for the fire separation
The
distance?
definition, so in the significant changes report, oh, I don't think I have it up. It's chapter 2, the definition of fire separation distance, where it, says, I don't have it up, but imaginary line between buildings on a lot for fire separation distance, and it adds imaginary line between buildings and townhouse units, or whatever it is. I don't have it up. I'm getting there. Dustin probably can get there faster.
For some reason my links are all hidden in a small bar at the top. Refresh.
So the significant changes report, it's on page 14.
So that change is that change was if I'm thinking of it correctly from the hearings, was for it wouldn't, I mean, if you take the line straight through a townhouse, then it wouldn't be in contradiction, I don't think, to these two, sorry, something on my face, to number 1 and number 2. What that is, because you don't have a wall there, if you don't, so if they're at 90 degrees like this, then the property line goes through and those walls wouldn't be required to be rated. What we did this for was like if you have townhouses that are like at a 90, and so if you have to do a property line, then you have to take that out, so you can't have like 2 garage doors that are right next to each other that are at 90s to each other, and there's no protections. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I'd have to go back and look at that, but I do think the language is kind of confusing, because imaginary line between townhouse units kind of, to me, sounds like the same thing as the common wall. And so like if you had an imaginary line at the common wall, then in our figure 2, based on our definition of floor area, that is floor area underneath the cantilever, which means we have a opening under the cantilever. So I get where you're coming from when saying like what we're trying to require. I just wonder if it's confusing. And I don't know if it's a discussion for now or when we get to this, the significant changes report. Or if anyone else has any differing opinions on that one.
We can discuss it more when we get to the significant changes, and so people can take a look at it and work through it in their mind as far as, is that an opening? Things like that. Does that make sense to people?
Yeah.
Because we have it down to put in an amendment for this.
That sounds good. Are we ready to move on from 302-23 continuity? All right, not seeing any objections. Brings us to parapets for townhouses. in the model code update, all the new model code language is identical to our existing state amendment. And so the recommendation is to repeal that existing amendment. They changed in the model code surface to decks in most of that. And then the last little bit is in the third exception, they add openings shall not be permitted in the wall. Any thoughts on repealing that amendment since it's verbatim?
In what you have in here, in number 2, you have surface deck. And you have one of the surfaces. Do you see that? You have surface in black.
Yeah, I see that there. That's probably a mistake on my part.
Yes, I was just so we don't leave in lower roof surface deck.
Looks like that same issue happens at the end of that number 2 as well.
Oh, sorry, that's where I'd seen it. Oh, it's at the beginning too. And in number 1.
I must have. Let me just scan the rest of that.
There we
Okay.
go.
And in the first exception down below, it's the doubling of decking in 2 places.
I guess I got it. Okay. Thank you for the sharp eyes. All right, are we okay with the content there? Moving on to table R302.1 exterior walls. There's no change by state amendment to the table, just some amendments to the footnotes there. And the changes remove the word gable vent and add ventilation. And then at the end, add in the rake overhang or in walls that are common to attic areas. In my reading of this one, the model code language has the same regulatory effect as the state amended language here. But I also don't have a specific reason to remove it per the other ones. So I've opened this one up for some discussion.
Okay. I read it as, yeah, it just basically it's getting rid of an unnecessary state amendment. So I agree with it. Anybody else from the tag? Okay.
See the thumbs up from Patrick. It's from
Barry.
Rico, Barry. All right. Looks like we've got reasonable consensus on that one. We'll move on to table 302.1, number 2. This one is the same, or not the same. I guess it is pretty much the same. No changes to the table, just state amendments in the footnotes, and the model code language has the same regulatory effect in my reading. And if we agreed on the one above, I think we would agree on this one as well. See some thumbs up coming up in the audience. When we get to 302.3 two-family dwellings, we have some amendments to this one. Recommendation to modify the existing amendment to look at the new model code language, which is completely replaced. And let me get in there. That's the 2021. It says 302.3. All right, so we have new language there. Dwelling units in two-family dwellings shall be separated from each other in accordance with these sections. So they've added some new sections down here in underneath this one, and pretty much revamped that whole section. And as far as modifying our existing amendment, I believe in the significant changes report, I recommend incorporating the model code language, because most of the stuff that's contained in our state amendment is spread out across the new sections here. Let me pull up both. So we had these sections: separation, continuity, supporting construction. All these were added as new sections to the model code in our 2021 cycle. And I believe that the intent there was to bring in the new language from 2024 into our 2021 code. And so we can run through these kind of section by section. Yeah. So two-family dwellings, I think most of this is covered by the existing amendments report. So do we want to talk about it here as part of the existing amendments report, since we have all new model code language to these sections? And the recommendation is based on these new model code language sections, replacing the upcoming several sections that are in the existing amendments report.
Yeah, I say we should just talk about it now. Get it over with.
Okay. Well, is there a comment from everybody on the thought to just repeal the state amendments to the two-family dwelling section and the existing amendments following in 302.3 because the new model code language is bringing in new sections here, and we would need to evaluate the modifications made in these sections as compared to here, and potentially bring in new amendment numbers and new amendment language in its entirety by my reading of what we have going on here. Barry.
I was just gonna put a thumbs up, but I figured that you said so much that we wouldn't know what thumbs up was for, but I think, yeah, repeal.
Okay. Bring that side by side. Barry, I assume you still mean to have the thumbs up. I'm going to lower your hand.
Yeah, I'll get this figured out by the time we're done with this whole thing.
Be an expert and you won't need it anymore.
Is there anything that you know of, Dustin, that's different between what we adopted in 2021 and the 2024 model code language that ended up being adopted?
I would have to reanalyze this one a bit more, but by my reading, I do believe that the content of our state amendments is in here. I do have the recommendation on the fire resistance construction to keep the existing amendment, but it's 302.3.1 gets broken out into two separate sections in the 2024 code. So I think, most of these say look at the significant change report for the recommendations there, but most of our amendments to these sections are covered in the content, but there is some language differences across these code sections. But I believe that the regulation is the same.
So actually, The second paragraph of the 21 code, the one accessory dwelling unit constructed within an existing, that's a state amendment. That is not in the base code. The one that allows you to not have a separation between two dwelling units if you construct it wholly within an existing one.
That section I highlighted right there.
Yes.
I mean, so that's where this fire resistant construction, the new section, I do believe I'm recommending we maintain that amendment because this statement is contained here in this exception where the accessory dwelling unit's added within. And I believe that
Okay.
that's the intent
Mhm.
there.
Okay, yeah, you're right. I think there's also a proposal for this section also.
Okay.
But yeah, no, you're right. It is still, if we're keeping that section, then yeah.
And it might just help if I have the significant changes report open for this one as well. Let me click the wrong button. Sorry. Patrick, go ahead.
Yeah, this is, I think, one issue that we face when we try to jump ahead and adopt something that's coming up in the next model code, and then we make changes to it, and then it gives us a lot of work to do when the new model code comes out. My preference would be to match the model code as much as possible in terms of numbering, in terms of titling, in terms of language. If there's something good that we have, like an exception or something, I would want to match that, but try to keep the structure, the numbering, and the language of the model code.
That's what this is trying to do, right, Dustin?
Yes, exactly. So for most of this section, the recommendation is to repeal the existing amendment and go with the model code language. And only on the stuff that is specifically different, like for example, the accessory dwelling unit within the existing, that is something unique to Washington code language. I'm trying to simplify what we have on the books there and try to better align with the model code language.
For example, on separation, the title has changed. So in the model code, it's dwelling unit separation.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like the language is a little bit different.
Yeah, I think what that Dustin script is going to try to do is the code and correlation. They're just going to correlate the existing amendments into the model code without changing the model code, but just incorporating our state amendments.
Right, but that's a good point to keep because there was a change in the title from separation to dwelling unit separation to change our amendment to do that also. Because currently it just says keep existing amendment versus to change it.
I guess what I'm really saying is I think that this is going to be more work than just keep or repeal. I think we basically need to create new amendments for the 2024 that keep the intent of the 2021 but matches the language and structure of the 2024. I wish we had 6 weeks and I would volunteer my time to help do that, but I'm pretty busy in the next 2 weeks, so I don't have a lot of time to contribute to things that aren't direct proposals that I've submitted.
So it sounds like what I'm hearing is the recommendations for all of 302.3 need a look. So when I'm looking at the significant changes report, I am so I have the recommendation to keep the existing amendment here. And I have it noted that it also goes from 302.3.1 to 302.3.2. And so in the significant changes report, I have it marked for 302.3.1 to have no amendments to it. So to adopt model code language there, and then 302.3.2 to incorporate the where an accessory dwelling unit language is added or is added by our amendment to these sections. I think that we probably want to just take a look at the recommendations on both of these, and maybe we can get some volunteers to look at 302.3 to make sure that the content of what we have in here is aligning across and also simplifying what we have on the books for our amendments. Do we have any volunteers who might be willing to take that on? I have tried to
look
do.
at it.
Okay. I've tried to make sure it's lined up across these reports. But I think it's there, but if we can get some additional eyes on it, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think the thing that I'm sort of struggling with is like how exactly to read this report. Because I do think like the significant changes report, you've incorporated the amendment that you're proposing there, but it's not super clear on the spreadsheet that we're looking at now, like what those changes actually are, to me at least. So I do
Gotcha.
think they're aligned if you're looking at the significant changes report, and that more clearly shows what you're proposing, I think, as the amendments to that section. But it has to be looked at like holistically with, the two reports, which is a little tricky.
Yes. It would be, I guess, nice to have these two separate reports somehow blended into one. I think that's doable. It's not how it's been done in the past with the SBCC. And it's a little bit late to combine them now. But as we move forward, maybe the recommendation on the existing amendments here is to modify the existing amendments and come back with some proposed language for the entire section. And I would be happy, Mariko, to take what I have in the existing amendments report and create a proposal draft document for you to review, and hopefully come back with when we get to proposals to discuss a little bit further.
Sounds good.
Okay.
I had a quick question here, Dustin, and maybe Angela, you could help answer this question. So I know that earlier, Angela, you brought up the existing dwelling unit and the charging language for 302.3, but that same language is also an exception under 302.3.1. Was there a reason why the IRC adopted both in both sections, the exact wording, seems like? To me, it's like that wording is an exception to 302.3, and then if you meet that exception, then you don't have to follow any of the others. So it doesn't make sense to have it in again under the separation, because you don't need to go there if it's an exception to the charging.
Like I said, there's a proposal on this that does exactly what you said.
Okay. Okay, yeah, because it's kind of wordy, extra wording that's not necessary.
Yeah, it's in two different locations that if you've already met the exception, then the rest doesn't apply. There is, like I said, there is a proposal in for the tag to discuss on that issue. So for an answer to your question, no, I don't know why they put it in two spots.
Okay, and Mariko, I'll send you the existing proposal on this one as well, and we'll I'll combine all the stuff that's on the significant changes report to for food for thought.
Thanks.
And so with that one, for 302.3, the whole section 302.3 is going to have a look. Okay. Do we want to chat any more on 302.3, or we'll bring back to discuss during the proposal reviews?
Yeah, I think that's a good plan.
Okay. Brings us to 302.13, fire protection of floors. We have an existing amendment. Let me make this bigger for folks. If it's hard for me to read, I'm sure it's hard for everybody else. Brings in a tiny definition, or not definition, amendment, and then the model code brings in a new number 5 for the exceptions. And so the recommendation is to modify our existing amendment to incorporate that new exception. Thoughts from the group? See one thumbs up. Alrighty. Not hearing a lot of willingness to discuss that one, so we'll move on to 303.1, natural light. There's new model code language added to this section. It's moved from 303.1 to 325.1.1. And looking at the significant changes report, get down to it. There's a new section covering natural light that's got a little bit more language in it. So let me pull up the actual code language. So this is the new model code language section here. It just disappeared. There we go. And let's see if I can make this play nice. Just killing me. Okay, there's that. And here's our section that we're looking at. So all habitable rooms, the existing state amendment reads, all habitable rooms shall have an aggregate glazing area of not less than 8% of the floor area of such rooms. We have the 8% habitable rooms. Then we have new language in addition to our amendment there, that required glazed opening shall face directly onto a street, alley, or public way, or yard or court located on the same lot as the building. And then we have one exception in our state amendment. The glazed areas need not be installed in rooms where artificial light is provided, capable of producing an average illumination of 6-foot candles, 65 lux, over the area of the room at a height of 30 inches above the floor level. And that is specific state amendment there in
Actually, it's number 3
oh, sorry, thank you.
in the base language now.
Yeah. So there's some new content in the model code, but the content of our state amendment is maintained in that new model code language. And so the recommendation is to repeal the existing state amendment for this section. I see some thumbs ups popping up. All right, we'll move on to adjoining rooms. There is an exception that has been removed from the model code language in this section. I wish my table of contents function was working a little bit better. It's going to take me a while to scroll back up there. Quinn, go ahead.
Yeah, so let's go back to the 3031 here. I believe our state amendment was mostly a deletion. So if you're saying to repeal our amendment, then that we're adopting the model code. This is in 2021 as well. The similar language was also in the 21 model code, and so we deleted a lot of the model code language. So are we now saying by repealing it, we want to use the model code language? And especially, I think it's the facing the streets, where the glazing has required to be facing streets and stuff. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but I'm don't have the model code here. Give me 1 second to pop up the 21 model code.
Yeah, because the 21 model code has quite a bit of language as well, and we just basically dissected it apart to make it simpler. So I don't know what the intent was originally or not. I could look at the 18 to see if the 18 was any similar as well. So I guess my only hesitation is buyer beware that we did remove quite a bit of language. So we repeal it, that means we're going to accept the model code. Yeah, so 18 is similar. Natural ventilation shall be through windows, skylight, blah, facing. So
you're correct, Quinn, that our existing state amendment modifies this section here and removes quite a bit of language.
Yeah, so I think our amendment was mostly a deletion, not an addition.
Okay. So with that consideration, I, as the drafter of that report, would change my recommendation to maintain the amendment to, instead of it being 3031 to 325.1, and I would need to make some updates on the model or on the existing, significant changes report as well, to make that line up.
Good catch, Quinn.
And so folks can see what I'm doing here. I would need to update the code language here in the significant changes report. Um, so, okay. Okay. All right, thank you, Quinn. So let me, I'm gonna need to get in here and add the removed language back to this section and make it clear what the state amendment is for this one. And then I'll be making a change in the significant changes report as well to modify that language so it looks more clear for us. Okay. Back to, are we done with natural light then?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you, Quinn. 303.2 adjoining rooms is another part of the has been moved to 325.1.3. Let me make sure I'm not looking at the wrong stuff. So here's the 2021 code section. Let me bring in the 2024 to look at.
The 24 no longer has the exception. So now if we want to keep that exception, that would become part of our state amendment.
Okay. 1.3 joining rooms no longer has the exception. And the recommendation is to modify the amendment to show that we're keeping the exception or to remove the exception. So I wanted to chat about what should be done there. Is there any thoughts from the group on maintaining the exception to this section?
I'm trying to pull up the 2021 model code to look at the amendment.
Are we still considering the exception? Is that what we're doing?
Yes, I believe so.
Does anyone have any reason why we should remove the exception? Or,
My only reasoning was that it's no longer included in the model code, and our amendments to the exception were not terribly significant. I mean, we do have the minimum openable area to the outdoor shall be based on total floor area being ventilated. But that was struck from the exception. And so my thought was to update our amendments and just remove the exception.
So the new 2024 language, it like reorganizes this section, and that exception is included under natural ventilation as exception number 4.
What's the number on that
Three
one?
R 325.1.2 exception 4 right there.
for this
So it's there
adjoining
for
rooms,
natural ventilation, but not for natural light. It's exceptions.
and for this, for our current, for adjoining rooms, for R 303.2, we removed ventilation from it, so we were only allowing it for light. So it was the opposite.
Yep.
We had removed it for ventilation.
I kind of feel like this is another code section that needs to be looked at holistically with the amendments and the code changes and how they align or don't.
And I don't believe we have any proposals on these sections. Let me verify real quick.
For the most part, so for like adjoining rooms, no changes were made except that the exception was removed and the section number changed.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's no proposals on the lighter ventilation sections so far. So would the recommendation then be we get some volunteers from this group to look at the light ventilation changes and come back with some more thoughts?
Yeah. I think that's probably a good idea because looking at it with the changes, it did change the percentage in the natural light. Or what am I looking at? No, it didn't. I don't know what I'm looking at. Never mind. Oh, yes, it did. Changed it from 8% to 4%. Uh, Never mind. I'm looking at the wrong section.
All
But if
right.
someone wants to volunteer to look at that, they can.
Do we have any takers on that volunteer work to look at 303/325 in the 24 code to make sure that the recommendations in this report align across the board?
I can look at that, Dustin.
Thank you. Alrighty. All right, with that, we'll move beyond section 303 slash 325 in the 2024 model code. And Annie, do you need anything from me to facilitate that review at all? I can uh drop all these amendments into so that they're consolidated without broken lines in between them. And then I can also put together the significant changes report content there so that you have a nice review document. Will that help you at all?
Very much so. I appreciate it.
All right. We are beyond 303 now. We're coming to 307.1. We're in the 2024. Let's see. 327 is the new code section for here. We got toilet, bath, and shower spaces.
Sorry, is Annie taking a look at all of 303? Is that what's happening?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And not just light and ventilation?
I was going to be all of 303. It was a light
Heating
ventilation.
as well. Okay. Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Thank you for that one. So for 307.1, it moves to 327.1. We have a reference to the state plumbing code section 402.5. My suggestion was to modify the existing amendment to remove the specific plumbing code section reference and change it to just the Washington State Plumbing Code. And this is just to reduce correlation errors that might arise due to section movement in future editions of the code. Saw a thumbs up from Barry. Thumbs up from Mariko. Everybody like that recommendation then?
We have a current state amendment to that specific section.
Yes. Now, it wasn't to remove the state amendment, it was just to modify it so that we don't have correlation issues across the codes and just reference the state plumbing code instead of the specific section.
Just a sec though. Where are we looking? 307.
Oops. That was not the code I wanted to pop open.
So there's no other sections of the plumbing code that could accidentally apply to this then? That shouldn't be? Because usually when the code references a specific section, it's to make sure that only that section is used.
I don't know the answer to that question off the top of my head, but let's space required.
And I don't know that it would. I'm just making sure that there's not unintentional consequences by referencing the entire code when it is only referring to a very small section.
I think, but I would need to research further to make sure there was no other sections that might apply to that specific section.
And you might also want to make sure you reference the right figure number now. That's just 327.1 now, not 307.1.
Yeah, so that is the intent here. So it shows that it moves from 3071 to 327.1. I'm in what I've got drafted here. I'm not showing specific changes. We would need to put the proposal together to show that change across the code. But that was the plan, is to push that amendment to 327. Okay. So on this one, I'm gonna try to do the research on this to see if the UPC is potentially got other relevant sections that could apply, and bring that back for some additional discussion.
My other comment would be that the UPC section that this is referencing is called setting. So without referencing the actual specific section, personally, I would never find this.
Okay. Well, I'm not opposed to leaving the specific code section reference, and this is the 2021 UPC. Let me see if the model code is the same. So 402.5 is still setting. And it has some changes, I believe. There. So there's some changes there, and I'll have to get with Brandon and see what's going on with this section in the UPC, and we'll just make sure there's no correlation that needs to happen across these two codes.
I'd be curious to see what the history is on why we modified it to 0.2, 402.5, because the only thing I see that's different is that if you have multiple water closets, it's got to be 30-inch center to center, to any similar structures. And that for an IRC building, that would be kind of, I haven't yet to see one that's like that. But anyways.
Well, this section applies to an IBC structure also, the UPC.
Right, but it's an IRC pointer. Yeah, you're pointing it from the IRC, right? So these are IRC buildings pointing to a commercial type of setting. I don't know. I mean, there might be homes out there that has water closets next to each other.
Well, but I mean, I'm just saying that this section, this 402.5 is used for both. So the fact that you're not going to have that in the residential, you might have it in the commercial, but it doesn't hurt to do it.
In the residential?
Yeah. And is it saying that you need 30 inches between a water closet and a bidet if you had two separate, or a urinal, which we do get houses with them?
Yeah, similar. It says similar fixture.
So I didn't review the figures in here to see if they align with the UPC dimensions. So,
For the most part, they do. I was just looking at that. That's what I was trying to compare, and that's when I noticed the 30 inches. All the other ones do compare relatively to each other. So I think the only change that the reason why we made the change is for that similar fixture, because like you see this diagram, it doesn't have a bidet and a water closet next to each other. So how do you review if there's a home IRC building that has that? So I think that's why we added that amendment.
okay. Okay. So it looks like I'll do some research on this section. We'll come back and talk about it a little bit more. And potentially it sounds like potentially change the recommendation to maintain the existing amendment. Or maybe leave it the same, but we'll talk about it some more, and I'll try to come back at the next meeting with that research ready to go. All right. Anything else on the space required section before we move to 30961 garages and carports? Seeing no hands. Let me just highlight that section. Garages and carports, I have a recommendation to modify the existing amendment. There's new language added to the model code, and the suggestion is to incorporate the new model code language. We did hear some talk about electric vehicle charging definitions. I know, Patrick, you have a proposal in on EV stuff for this section. I was just curious, does your proposal have definitions? I'm not familiar.
It does, but BIW will be withdrawing that proposal.
Heard. All right. Is there let me see, I'm pulling up the significant changes report, looking for 317. Just one moment. So in 317.6 in the model code, the significant changes report, I have it indicated that the new section here in the model code incorporates the amendments from 309.6.1. And so we would need an amendment here to incorporate that language and also have the what you see in red at the end of the section 309.6 and the exception there. And that would incorporate into just 317.6. And it looks like I might have the numbers wrong here. 309.6.1 and the section is 309.6. So let me clarify. Angela.
So if we keep that last sentence in red, does that mean that when chargers are being added to existing homes, they don't have to be installed per NFPA 70? Because that's saying this section only applies to new construction. Because this isn't where they're being required. This is saying where provided.
So I may have missed the core of the question there. If they are, how are you saying that the NFPA 70 wouldn't apply to them?
So this section isn't telling us where they're required. It's saying where you provide them. So if I choose to put one in my house would be how this is saying, then it needs to be installed per NFPA 70. But then that last sentence, the provisions of this section shall apply to the construction of new dwelling units per section R101.2 with attached garages and private carports. So I read that to say that if you're putting a charger in an existing dwelling unit, this section does not apply. So where does it say that for existing buildings that you have to go do NFPA 70? And then also the exception says where there is no public utility or commercial power supply, which again, that should only be included where you're actually telling people where they're required. And that's an exception to when they have to be provided. Because this is saying this section is how to install them, not where to install them, is the way I'm reading this.
Patrick?
Yeah, the current state amendment and the new 2024 language are doing two different things. The state amendment is, the requirement for you have to put in this, whereas the new 2024 language is just saying if you put in electric vehicle charging systems, then they must be done. So XYZ. So if we want to mesh those two together, there would need, we'll have to figure out how to do that.
Yeah, it would be two sections. It would be the section that mandates when they're required, and then a subsection below that that says how to install them. When?
Well, yeah, kind of going off of what Patrick was saying, there are conflicting sentences. One of them, so I think the one in blue would probably be more appropriate. I think you're right for how to do it, but then also for if you're doing it in existing homes as well. So if you're going to install it in an existing home, because we're not going to require existing homes, right? The one in red is the requirement for new construction, but for existing, we do need a language that points back to NFPA 70. So I think we're talking two different things right now, but they are a conflict the way that it's currently set up.
I can volunteer on behalf of the tag to try to develop a code language meshing these two together, keeping the intent of the current amendment, but bringing in the model code language.
And Patrick, I can help you out too. This is something I like to do too. So yeah, we can work together on it.
Perfect.
And will you guys be hitting just all of 2024 section 317.6 for EV requirements to just make sure that that statutory mandate to install on new residences is incorporated in a enforceable way in the 24? And I guess, are you working on all of 317.6 is my question? Or are you just trying to cover this application and separate 309.6 from that application section?
I would say so. We would do all of it. Right, Pat?
Bringing in all the model code language.
Yes.
Yeah, we'd work on the entire EV garage part. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. 6. Okay, 309.6. I'm putting that same statement over here on the existing amendments report. Looks like there's just the one section in the model code. This is 317.6. Yeah, just one section. Okay, sorry. I made it sound like there was a whole section of different sections to mess with, so apologies.
I thought
Okay.
I looked at it before and I thought it was pretty small, so I was like, I don't think there's that much.
Yeah. There's a lot of blue on the existing or the significant changes report, and it's in 317 for garages and carports, and so I wasn't reading, I was just assuming things. So appreciate the volunteer on that one. And so I got that changed in both the reports. Just for posterity, I'll show the change here. I just put it in the small box for the existing or the significant changes report to work on that one. Getting to garages and carports, the dedicated circuit, that'll be part of what Patrick and Quinn are going to work on to make sure we're bringing it back. The initial recommendation is to maintain that amendment and update the numbering to the correct spot. And I have the target location to be 317.6.1, which would be a new section in the model code. Moving to emergency escape and rescue openings. For this section, it moves from 310.1 to 319.1, and the recommendation is to modify the existing amendment to incorporate the new model code language shown in blue. We have to the addition of the room to which a sleeping loft is open. So you don't need EEROs in the sleeping loft itself, but in the room to which it opens. So I think that that's a decent addition there. And then the storm shelters are removed from section 1 and added into a new, or sorry, exception 1, and has added a new exception to number 2, which is in accordance with ICC 500. And so recommendation just to incorporate that model language here. Ken.
You might want to show where it says not less than 36 inches opens to a public way in 310.1, that is all, I believe, state code amendment. The model code doesn't show the 36 inches, and this might help with that emergency amendment that Dave Kokot put forward, that we already have a 3-foot.
So this right here at the very end, you're saying is state amendment language?
Yeah, I'm exactly, because I'm looking after the word public way. Yeah, I believe it is.
Yeah, it's the 36 inches is also part of the state amendment. And then
Yeah.
that opens to a public way is base.
So
and it's actually
is it
right.
possible I got cleaned up in some errata on the model code? Because on what I'm working with on their online codes, it shows that as existing base language for the 2021.
I wouldn't
I
necessarily trust the ICC version of the state code as the de facto version, because I've noticed that it does not, there's some mistakes in what's in there between what's in WAC. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's something not right in it. I wouldn't treat it as the absolute.
Right. Well, I guess when I was putting this together, I compared the 2021 model code to the 2021 state amendments sections. And so anything shown in blue, like so what I have here on the left-hand side is the 2021 model section here. And they're showing that this blue is added this for that code season. which is why I have it in black here. But I'm happy to show it as an amendment if that's what we feel is, necessary. I don't know if it's necessary to show it 100%, but I would yield to the tag opinion on that.
Section N two. Oh. Actually, you're right, Dustin. In the 21 base code, you're correct. That is base code, that 36 inches. In the 24, it's not there. You're
Okay.
correct.
Okay. Okay. So it's just the 36 inches that's missing from the 2024 code.
It's also the unobstructed path.
Right,
They've
that's a
added
state
exceptions
amendment.
for.
Yeah.
So I think that shows the state amendment and the change in the 2024 code accurately at that point. Go ahead, Patrick. Well, you're muted.
Sorry, gotta get my buttons right here. So the staff recommendation is to keep the unobstructed path state amendment and then remove the 36 inches requirement to match the model code.
Well, the new change right there is, I guess, changes what the initial recommendation was, but I would, yes, that would still be my recommendation, is to remove the 36 inches unless we feel it's relevant. It's because that is model code language that's been changed. So we didn't actually modify that in the 2021 code. Ken?
I'm gonna volunteer to take a look at this and the 310.1, and then I'll come back with it if you don't mind. I mean, just make sure we're not missing anything. And I'll just analyze it between the 21 and the 24 and our existing state amendments. If that's okay. If not, I will do nothing.
You know, that's a good plan. We are coming up at time.
One other thing to mention about this one is we're not there for the loft section, but I know we went from sleeping lofts in 2018 to lofts in 2021. And now it looks like, Dustin, you're proposing going back to sleeping lofts. So whatever we end up doing, this language here in this section should be consistent, whether it's sleeping loft or loft.
Gotcha. So it looks like, I think the model code went back to sleeping lofts in this section. I'm not sure if that's all across the board. I might have to verify that. But since we are running up on time, I wanted to quickly just talk about what we're bringing back. I don't know if we'll have the time to do all the research we're talking about doing before our Thursday meeting. Would it sound good to bring that back to a meeting next week and then at Thursday's meeting continue where we're at so we have time to do that work? Okay.
Yeah, that would be what I would say. Quinn?
Yeah, just a heads up again. I'll be coming in late on Thursday as well. I have a conflict meeting as well.
Thank you, Quinn.
Okay. Patrick?
I really appreciate the depth that we're doing in this. I think this is exactly what we need to do, but just trying to have a dose of realism here. We haven't even made it halfway through this report. We still have the significant changes report, and we have to do all the proposal work. And I think this work is necessary. I think we need time to be able to go through and make sure that we're doing good code. But how do we go about telling the committee or the council that the timeline to get this all done by the 15th is not realistic?
So that is a topic I want to bring up at our executive committee meeting this Friday, is our timing and schedule and all of that. And so that would be a perfect time to bring it up, is at that meeting, to talk about our timelines for what we have going on.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
with
so if people could keep looking at the rest of the report, so that we have our comments and discussion points for things we do want to touch on, so we can hopefully keep moving through this, that would be great.
Yes, please. So we're now 1 minute over. We should probably wrap it in, I guess, could we get a motion to table the remainder and to pick up where we are leaving off at 310.2.4?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Hey,
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you for your time, everyone. And we will see you on Thursday.
Yes. Thanks,
Thanks,
everybody.
everybody.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.